Hi, good evening and welcome. I'm Dr. Heather Sandison, and I think you're in the right place here. Brain healing activities tonight. It's July 25th. These replays will be available, and I'm going to do a quick 30-minute presentation, and we'll save plenty of time this evening to go through all of your questions. So please add those to the Q&A, and then hopefully the chat works this week. I know it wasn't working last week. I'm sorry. I think we fixed that. So please add who you are. Tell us who you are in the chat and add any questions in the Q&A. I'm going to go through as many as possible. So go ahead and add those right away so that I'll start with yours. All right, let's jump in. So I am here to basically give you the support that you need to prevent and reverse dementia at home is my hope. So I believe, based on what I've seen clinically, based on what I've seen in Marama, is that everyone, nearly everyone can prevent and reverse dementia. Most people can reverse their decline. That's what we've seen. That's what Dr. Bredesen found in his research that he did with Cat Tubes and Anne Hathaway. They did a 25 participant trial that was just published this month in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, or maybe it's the Journal of Alzheimer's and Dementia. I really should know this, and I think I said that last week. So peer-reviewed clinical trial that showed that 84% of the time you can reverse dementia. And the people who weren't able to get better, oftentimes there was something preventing them. They weren't able to fully implement the protocol at home. And so that's why they didn't get better. So my goal is to give you all of the support you need so that you feel the certainty that you are doing everything you can to get the benefits of this program. I know it's hard. I know it can be challenging. And so we want to make sure that you have access to a step-by-step guide. And this is a way to help you prioritize, to help you simplify, to put the puzzle pieces together, is coming to these webinars, learning from this, and then also we have a Marama at Home course, which I'll talk about more later. So my name, again, is Dr. Heather Sandison. Most of you know me from the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit that we did recently. And I had the privilege of interviewing more than 50 experts in the field. And the resounding answer from them about whether or not it's possible to reverse Alzheimer's is yes. It's totally possible, but it doesn't come in the form of a pill or an IV or something simple that we can just take. It really requires some hard work. And I was told early on, when I was in training, I was told to never tell anyone that you could reverse dementia or Alzheimer's, because that would be cruel. That would be giving them false hope. It would be giving their family false hope, and that there was no cure for Alzheimer's. And I would say that that's still the case. There certainly is no pharmaceutical cure, and there's no pharmacological cure. However, we can reverse the disease process using lifestyle medicine and naturopathic medicine, and basically attempting to patch the holes in the roof, as Dr. Bredesen describes it, right? He says, if you have 36 holes in the roof and you patch one, you still have a leaky roof. So our goal, yes, through lifestyle, yes, through naturopathic medicine, precision-based medicine, is to patch all of those holes in the roof. And so it really is an absolute privilege to have learned from Dr. Bredesen and be able to offer this at Solcere at my clinic. I was trained by Dr. Bredesen in 2017, and I was a skeptic. I showed up at Dr. Bredesen's training, really having learned that there was nothing you could do, having been told that by very smart people over and over again. And so I went because I was intrigued. He was saying something that sounded like common sense, that again, if you patch all of these holes in the roof, if you take a systematic complex systems science approach, and we look at everything that drives cell function, then we should get repair. We should get neuronal repair. And sure enough, that's what we see happen. But at first I was a skeptic. In 2017, I did not know if this would work. But I saw that it was helping people, and I started developing a bit of a reputation in the area for reversing dementia, helping people do that. And then I had people asking me, where can I send my loved one? I have an uncle, or I have my dad, or someone in my family, a loved one in my family who I can't take care of myself. They can't move into my house. I don't have time, or I don't have bandwidth, but I want them to go and get the benefit of this Bredesen approach. And I looked around and nowhere had a ketogenic diet, nowhere had activities that were for brain health. No senior living facility that existed at that time was offering this, an immersive experience that would make it really easy to do. And so I thought, well, how hard could it be? And something conspired in my favor, so that about 10 months later, we had opened Marama. So Marama, I founded Marama after being asked this question, where can I send my loved one? And what we've seen there is just absolute miracles. We have seen even severe Alzheimer's improve, and we have seen people with less severe disease completely recover. So really, really phenomenal results, really amazing things that we're seeing. And it's, again, just an absolute privilege to be a witness to all of this. I also founded Solcere, the clinic where I am speaking to you from now, where we do the medical side. So this can be a little confusing. At Marama, it's a residential care facility by definition. And so it's an immersive experience in the lifestyle, but it's not the medicine. So it's not prescriptions, it's not labs, it's not deciding what to do, it's the implementation of what your doctor, your Bredesen trained doctor says to do, their treatment plan that they give you. And then here over at Solcere, that's where we put the treatment plan together. So we work with our patients to do all the lab testing, to define what are your 36 holes, what was the path that you took to get to a dementia diagnosis. And so over at Solcere, I had a philanthropist come in as a patient in 2018, and he had a great experience, and he asked, how can I help you help more people? And so I was, again, just extremely, extremely fortunate to have him donate the funds that were necessary to conduct a clinical trial. And I spent today writing that paper so that we can get that published. We're really excited to share our results with everyone. And like Dr. Bredesen, we'll have a peer-reviewed journal article of our 25 participants that we took through a very similar trial to theirs. We recruited patients who had more severe disease than in Dr. Bredesen's group. I had the audacity to design the clinical trial based on what I was seeing working in the clinic. And I saw that this protocol worked with people who had more severe dementia, even though we have, of course, more confidence when people are early on or on in the process. Even people with very measurable cognitive decline get better when they do it. So I also am a caregiver. I certainly have served as a caregiver. When we first took over the location where Marama is now, it was a hospice facility. And the day that we took over that property, I essentially moved in for 2 or 3 weeks, and I was there all night and all day for about 2-3 weeks. And while staff was changing and we were training people and we were turning things over, and this was over, we closed on December 19th. So this was over the holidays. And it was just an incredible thing to watch the families interact with their loved ones who were living in this home. And I had the honor of serving someone as she transitioned from life to death when she was on hospice. It was so fascinating. There's a cat who came with the building and the residents. His name was Tiger. And whenever someone was close to that transition, Tiger would find them and curl up on their bed at the foot of their bed, and he wouldn't leave. He would barely get up to eat and use the bathroom. He'd be right back there at the foot of their bed, snuggled up, and there to support people through that last transition. And being there for her, serving her family. I got up at night and changed adult diapers, and I helped to feed people when they couldn't use utensils anymore. And so I have had, again, this distinct privilege and honor to serve people on this path at many different stages. And I hope that the things that I've learned will help support you so that you can do it in a way that feels very nourishing, very satisfying, very gracious, versus feeling like you're pulling your hair out, because that can happen too. But we want to spend more time feeling that honor and privilege of being with someone in that phase of life. So my hope is to support you in that. I feel like I have been very supported. I want to pass it on. Sometimes as we approach this, it's the first time we're doing it. We're not experts at it. We don't know everything. And I certainly don't know everything. It's really awesome doing these webinars, meeting the families. There are so many things that I learn, and I hope that you all start to learn from each other. One of the goals of doing these webinars, of creating the summit, is to create community here so that we can all lean on each other and learn from each other. So Dr. Bredesen, as I mentioned, I was skeptical of his approach, but really impressed by the common sense, right? A lot of this is common sense. It's just not common practice. We know we should eat better and exercise more and all of these things. However, putting it into practice, especially in a care home setting, is really challenging, or especially as people are aging and more hurdles are coming up. And so seeing Dr. Bredesen speak, being inspired by what he was saying, and then getting the opportunity to implement it in clinical practice was amazing. And he has been a huge supporter of my work. I obviously am a huge supporter and a big fan of his work. He really has been the one kind of shouting into the wind, telling everyone this was possible, and getting a lot of criticism for it, because there are a lot of interests that are sort of at odds of there being a lifestyle intervention that maybe can't get patented or sold as a pharmaceutical. So he really deserves a lot of credit here. I'm extremely humbled to have an opportunity to work with him and collaborate with him on things like the summit. And we're looking forward to doing more. So Linda was my first patient when I came back from training with Dr. Bredesen. And she really is the person who I go back to over and over again when I think about my why. So Linda came into my office with her husband, and she had severe dementia. It had affected her handwriting. She was barely able to answer with more than a yes or no answer. I would ask her a question, and I could see that she processed the question. I could see it on her face. But then before she could get the answer out of her mouth, she'd forgotten the question. And really every aspect of her life was affected. And her husband was so dedicated. He loved her so much. It was really amazing to watch. And they were very enthusiastic about applying the Bredesen protocol. So what they did was immediately went home. They had more trust and faith in it than I did. At this point, I was still a skeptic. I hadn't seen it work with my own eyes. And they were like, of course it will work. Well, he had a lot of faith in the Bredesen approach, and it made sense to him. So we put a treatment plan together. He knew a lot of what to do already, but we got her on the hormone replacement. We looked in her mouth, and I saw that she definitely needed to see a dentist. So she got all of her amalgams out. They moved out of a moldy house, out of the moldy area of their house, which was in the bedroom. So they moved down, and I think that they started sleeping in the living room. They moved a bed into the living room. And then she got on all the supplements. They started ballroom dancing 4 times a week, and they got on the ketogenic diet. They really hit it hard. They did all of the pieces of the Bredesen protocol, or as many as they possibly could. And what we saw was astounding. So Linda's first mocha is on the left, and you can see how her box, right? You meant to copy the cube and then draw the clock. And this is just one little snippet, but you can see how big of a difference it made in just 6 weeks. So her baseline mocha score, perfect, is out of 30. So if you have no measurable cognitive decline, you'll be at 30. A 0 is very severe disease. And Linda had a 2 out of 30 at baseline. She came back 6 weeks later. She had a 7 out of 30. So of course, my first reaction was to go, did we do it wrong? Did we not measure that right? Like, what did I miss? This isn't supposed to be possible. And it was. Linda's experience had changed. She was bickering with her husband about something that had happened on their way to the clinic. So she was having conversations. It was no longer yes and no responses. No, she still, of course, had short-term memory loss. She was not going back to work, but her handwriting had reverted. But she was a school teacher when she was working, and she had very neat, nice, tidy handwriting. But she had signed something, and it was at a slant. It was very, very small. It was shaky, and it had changed just 6 weeks later. And so watching this just absolutely miraculous change in Linda, I thought to myself, if this is possible for her, what's possible for everybody that's not so far along? What's possible for people with mochas of 22, not 2? What's possible for people with mochas of 12, right? And then really from that moment on, I've essentially dedicated my life to changing the narrative. No one should be told there's nothing you could do. There is always hope for someone suffering with dementia. I've seen people on hospice start talking again and recover so much of the joy of life. I know that it's possible. So Linda, she and her husband kept dancing. They wore these bright, there was so much personality and there was so much love and so much she had left to give. And it was amazing to watch that transformation. And I want that for all of you. Chris is another patient of mine who did all of this at home. She's a nurse and she was still working. And unfortunately, she had to take nighttime call once a week. And this sleep is an absolute critical component of the Bredesen protocol and of making sure that you're protecting your brain. And Chris was not getting regular sleep. She would take call overnight. She would sometimes get called in. She was struggling at the computer. So things that used to be really easy, like learning new computer programs, charting, staying on top of things, little things that she had done easily before were now really, really challenging. And she was worried she was going to be fired and she needed to work a little bit longer to get those best health benefits. She had a plan. Her and her husband had a plan. And she had that one night of call and it wasn't too bad. And she felt like she could just push through it, but she was worried about her cognitive function. It was really slipping, and we could test it. And this was measurable decline. Even though she was still working, she had very significant cognitive decline. She was getting by, I think, because she had been a nurse for 30 something years. So she was definitely getting by, but she was not at the top of her game. So 6 months in, so she had a baseline MoCA of 22, and that's here, and you can see it's going up, up, up. We tested it. She actually, at the end, she's been tested recently, and she has a MoCA of 30. So at the beginning, she had a MoCA of 22. This is significant, measurable cognitive decline. She's still working, but kind of just barely hanging on. And over the course of 12 months, she's gotten back to a MoCA of 30. These numbers on the graph, so this is her voltage. So we do an EEG as well. So we measure here in the clinic, we measure how much energy your brain is producing. And we can measure voltage, and you can see here that is also going up. And then here we see reaction times. There's this gray line is the physical reaction time, and the yellow line is the brain reaction time. So this is like how fast you run. This is how fast does your brain recognize a stimulus, and then how fast can your finger respond to your brain, physically respond to your brain's direction to tell your finger to move. And so what we see is those numbers declining, meaning she's getting quicker. So this is exactly what we expect when people are able to implement the program at home. You measure that MoCAs go up, so you get smarter, essentially. You get quicker, you remember more, you put more together, you can handle more complex tasks, you can follow through with executive functioning, and you have more energy going to your brain, and you are quicker with your physical and your brain reaction time and your physical reaction time. So what I am offering is basically where we're going to go now is I'm going to take you through what the Marama at Home course is like. Of course, tonight we don't have time to go through all of it. It's an 11 module program or 12 weeks of coaching, which I'm offering tonight for the first time. I'm going to tell you more about that later at the end after you learn some more about the activities. So what we're going to do is jump into the activities we do at Marama, give you a sense of that, and then I'll tell you more about how you can get more support if you want that. So take out your phone maybe and take a picture here real quick. These are the activities that we do at Marama. And this is, I'll give you some other ideas as well, but what we've found is that you want to have predictability. So, all humans, so we want some combination of a little bit of surprise and kind of mixing it up. And we want some predictability today that helps us feel safe. And certainly for someone with cognitive decline, it's nice to get into the rhythm of things. And so this is how we set it up at Marama. We start with an 8 o'clock breakfast. We have 3 meals a day, and there's snacks in between: 8 o'clock breakfast, 12 o'clock lunch, and a 5 o'clock dinner. That 5 o'clock dinner helps us make sure that we have at least 3 hours between our last bite of food around 5:30 or 6, and then when we go to sleep around 9. And then after dinner, we offer herbal tea, so no food. We don't want to be digesting at night when we're trying to get really good sleep. And then in between all that food, because that's so important, right? We talked about that last week, the ketogenic diet. In between all that food, what we want to be doing all day long is stimulating the brain. We want to be getting it to make new connections, grow new neurons. And that is a combination of exercise and stimulation. And as you'll learn, the combination of doing both at the same time. So movement, there's lots of movement throughout the day. We start with walks, typically right after breakfast. On Sunday, they do church and then a walk. So this fluctuates a little bit throughout the week, but for the most part, it's pretty standard that there's a walk in the morning followed by a meditation. We're going to go into the science of why that particular Kirtan Kriya meditation. And then after that, we stimulate conversation with something we call the daily chronicles. So it's often, on July 25th in 1945, such and such happened. And this sometimes will say, oh, my parents were married on July 25th. That was their wedding anniversary. And my wedding was on this day. And I remember. And so people start to share their personal experiences. It starts conversation. They're remembering things. And so they're connecting with each other at Marama. And I would encourage you to find partners to do this with at home. Find and facilitate connecting through sharing stories, through sharing experiences. And also writing in notebooks. And I would encourage you to do this tonight, even as we go through this. When we write things down in our notebook, and I'm going to ask you to do an exercise in a minute. When you write things down, it's more likely that they're going to happen, right? So writing things down in your own handwriting helps you potentially at home to implement this program a little bit easier. And then at Marama, what we see is that when someone's written it down in their own handwriting and they go back to it, it's easier for them to remember. And they trust that it happened, right? They're not questioning, wait, did I really write that down this morning? Or did somebody really say that this morning? They see it there in their own handwriting. So they'll write down some notes about what they've done, what they're looking forward to, maybe a little bit of a conversation, and then they can go back and they can share it with their families when they connect with them later on that day. After daily chronicles, we move into some sort of creative art. So sometimes there's a holiday coming up and they'll make Christmas ornaments or Valentine's Day cards or Christmas gifts. Last year they did salt scrubs for their family members and sent those out. Super sweet. And if there's a birthday, they'll make a birthday card. Sometimes they're helping in the kitchen. So some sort of creative activity. Sometimes it's going down to the garden to water or collect food, harvest things that are growing. So some sort of creative activity that feels productive and then also, again, gets that shared experience. And then lunch, we are often wrapping up whatever that earlier morning experience was, or sometimes people take a nap after lunch, depending on their energy level. Of course, that's encouraged. If you're sleepy, if a resident is sleepy, we encourage them to rest. And I would encourage you to also do that at home, right? If you're feeling tired, listen to those urges. Now, if you're bored, then let's get you some more stimulating activity. If you're tired and it feels like you need rest, then of course. And sometimes it's hard to know the difference. Also, if there's depression involved, it can feel challenging to know what it is that you really need. Exercise, though, helps with all of those things, with energy levels, with mood. And so good physical exercise we do in the exercise therapy circuit, and I'll share more about that with you as well. Essentially at Marama, we call it the casita, and we do the circuit and the casita in the afternoons. We have a personal trainer, somebody who's worked with, she's trained as a personal trainer and she's worked in geriatric physical therapy for a long time. So she has a lot of great skills to help people optimize their therapy circuit and make sure that it's really safe. So we have bands, resistance bands, small weights. There's a mini trampoline or a rebounder, which can be helpful for detox and also cardio. There are saunas. We have a biomat that's very relaxing if somebody's feeling a little agitated. It's a warm, kind of firm mat that happens to have amethyst crystals in it. I don't know how much that part does, but it's been amazing. The residents love it and respond very well to it. And then there's red light therapy, the Juve light and the Vi light. And then we have the LiVO2 contrast oxygen therapy as well. And I think there's a rower in there, all kinds of fun toys. It's really a blast. And the residents love it. They cheer each other on. They get excited. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel accomplished. And there's tons of benefit that they get from doing this, especially doing it with regularity. And then games, after dinner, favorites are Uno, Bananagrams is another one. There's a handful of games that the residents loved. We've tried a lot of things, something like chess that's highly complicated, people give up on, especially if they've never played before. Something like checkers is kind of a little bit too low stimulation. So you want to find that spot where you or your loved one is challenged, but not so challenged that it's overwhelming and you just give up. The other thing that we find throughout the day with no matter what the activity is understanding what motivates people is really helpful in terms of getting them to engage, right? Because it's very easy if someone starts to feel challenged, which is exactly what we want to do with these activities. We want to challenge the brain so that it's doing those bicep curls, right? It's building those connections and those muscles in the brain that are necessary for neural pathways and memory. Short-term memory, long-term memory, for mood, for so many things. So if we're not challenged, then we're not going to get the benefit. But if we're overly challenged, we can give up. So understanding what motivates someone so that the moment that they're about to walk away, there's a resident who just loves to be wanted, right? And we all do at some level. But if you say, we're really going to miss you. We really wish that you would stay. If you're not here, it's just not going to be the same. And then she will stay. But if we say, oh, you have to stay, like it's in your program, if you're not going to get better if you don't, she'll just walk right away. Another gentleman, if you tell him that it'll be helpful for somebody else, he'll stay. But if you tell him it's for him, he won't. If you tell him you're going to miss him, he won't stay. But if you say, oh, Jean needs help, if you stay, you can help her, he'll sit right back down and be engaged. It's really phenomenal. So understanding what motivates the person that you're working with. And with exercise, this is true. If I've paid for an exercise class in advance, you better believe I'm going. If I haven't, I might just sleep in. If I'm meeting a friend, I'll show up. So knowing what motivates you and then being able to sort of use that to your advantage so that you're doing these things that are good for you and good for your loved one is important. All right, so I promised I would talk about Kirtan Kriya. So Kirtan Kriya is very easy. It's just 12 minutes a day, very affordable because it's totally free. You can just find this on YouTube. If you Google or go into YouTube and search for Kirtan Kriya, it will bring up a 12-minute, and there's different, there's a bunch of them, but the ones I like just launch right in. It doesn't have a long explanation about why. I'm going to tell you that part right now, and then you don't have to look again. You just have to do it. 12 minutes, once a day, every day. We do this at Marama, and I highly recommend that caregivers, we have all of our staff sit down with them, do it with them. There's always laundry, there's always dishes, there's always lots to do, but jump in and do this with the person you're caring for, your loved one. And so what does this do? It helps all of us improve sleep, decrease depression, reduce anxiety, downregulate inflammation, upregulate immune system, improve insulin and glucose, increase telomerase, it has to do with aging. So it basically slows aging. And this is very simple, satanama, satanama. And what we see is that when people first show up, they can't quite get their fingers to their thumb to the right finger. And then after a couple of weeks, they've got it. They've got it down. It's really neat to also watch the mood in the room change before and after meditation, and just how everyone calms, and it's easier to get through whatever else is planned for the day. When we skip this, it gets a little harder. All right, so the 4 types of exercise. I think of aerobic exercise as the first type. And this is where you're getting your heart rate up. This is your heart rate getting to a moderate to vigorous exercise, which is about 75 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. To calculate your maximum heart rate, you take the number 200 and you minus your age. That's your maximum heart rate. And then if you'll learn more about this in the Marama at Home course if you choose to take it, and we'll go through that again. But 75 to 85% of that maximum heart rate is where you want to spend about 200 minutes a week. And that helps with cardiovascular support, of course, but it also helps with just getting blood flow to the brain, which is what we want if we want to reverse dementia. Strength training is the other thing. So examples of aerobic exercise would be like jogging, the rower, the rebounder that we have, swimming, biking. There's lots of different things you can do. You just want to get that heart rate up, and you can wear a device that checks where your heart rate is, or, once you get a sense of being at that moderate to vigorous 75% to 85% of maximum heart rate, then sometimes that's enough feedback, just how you feel. Then strength training, also extremely important. Building muscle, of course, helps with reducing fall risk, helps with looking a little better, helps with a lot of things. But what we're looking for with muscle building is that trophic support. So it's the signaling that comes from muscles, things like testosterone. So when you have more testosterone, you make more muscle. But when you have more muscle, you make more testosterone. So it's a feedback loop. And that testosterone is one of those sex hormones that goes to the brain and is associated with better neuronal function. So we want to be getting that signaling coming from the muscles to the brain. That's why we want more muscle. It's one of many reasons we want more muscle. And then I mentioned this cognitive physical exercise combination. So examples here are things like hula dancing, remembering the steps, having any sort of dancing where you have to remember the steps, and especially if you have a partner, like in ballroom dancing, where you're needing to cognitively pay attention to where am I going? Where is my partner going? You're paying attention to the music. So your brain is very engaged. That is what we want. We want high levels of cognitive engagement at the same time that we are getting physical engagement. So yoga, Pilates, where you have an instructor cueing you, that also can be a way to do it. Zumba, other classes. And then you can also go for a very brisk walk. You want to be exercising enough that you have your heart rate up a little bit, but not training for a marathon, not going so fast or so far that you are losing your breath, or you're not able to talk or think, right? We want you thinking. And so I had a patient who would go for a brisk walk with her granddaughter, and her granddaughter would quiz her on all kinds of things, the 50 states, the presidents in order, whatever. They would listen to health podcasts together because her granddaughter was a nutritionist. She was in a nutrition program. And so they would listen to health podcasts and then quiz each other on the different supplements she was taking. And she learned a ton. Not only did she learn a ton, but she was very successful in the program. And then contrast O2. So live O2 is what we use. And I'm going to talk quite extensively about that. So I'll go there now. But the benefits of exercise, just in case you didn't believe me, I will show you. This is from an article that shows a small to medium positive effect of this combined cognitive physical intervention on global cognitive function. So small to medium, you're like, okay, maybe that's helpful, maybe not, but small to medium effects on cognitive function. I mean, let's take anything we can get, right? And then when we start stacking them on top of each other, this plus good sleep, plus a great diet, plus the supplements, plus the hormone replacement, now we're talking, right? Is with mild cognitive impairment or dementia. So this is happening across the spectrum of the severity of disease. So it's not like it only works in people in the early stages. It works through the entire kind of slippery slope of dementia. A combined intervention was equally beneficial in patients with dementia and mild cognitive impairment. That's what I basically said, but less articulately than they wrote it. And then in addition, the analysis showed a moderate to large positive effect after combined cognitive physical activity interventions for activities of daily living. So when we talk about, as a caregiver, especially speaking to caregivers, like what matters? Mood and ADLs, right? Can you go to the bathroom on your own? Can you feed yourself? How do you feel day to day? What is your experience of the world? So yes, we want cognitive function better. And that was the primary outcome measure we were looking for in our study. But what really matters, can we live independently? Are we losing our dignity? And how do we feel? How do we feel in the world? And we get moderate to large positive effects with this combined cognitive and physical intervention. I mean, that's radical. And who wouldn't want that? I want that. So I do this. I want to know what this would look like for you. Brainstorm. So please add to the chat If you were getting creative, that's what we're going to do right now together, inspire each other. What would that look like? How would you combine cognitive and physical intervention together? Add it to the chat whenever you're ready. And then I want to talk a little bit about contrast. So these are, everybody knows, about aerobic exercise. Everybody knows about strength training. A lot of people don't realize this cognitive physical combo, this dual exercise is sometimes what you see it referred to. A lot of that came out of the TBI research. So after traumatic brain injuries, people are doing this to recover cognitive function. Well, it works in dementia too. And then contrast O2 is the other one that a lot of people have questions about. It's kind of new and different. So creating contrast, what we do here is, you can see this is at Marama, we have a reservoir of concentrated oxygen, and that's attached to an oxygen concentrator. And then there's the tubing that goes from the reservoir to the participants, our athletes' face, and then they have a mask on. So you can toggle, you can see that dangling from the bike here. You can toggle that back and forth from positive to negative O2. So you're having either increased oxygen at 80%, or you have negative O2, which is about 8%. What we breathe day to day in the air, in the atmosphere, is 20% O2. So it goes back and forth from positive to negative. And in that adaptive contrast, we get a bunch of physiological things happening that help to support oxygen flow to the brain. The other thing that you can do is you can do EWOT, or exercising with oxygen therapy. And EWOT is where you just use positive oxygen. What you find is people have better exercise tolerance, so they're able to get more, and that can feel really good. And sometimes that's as far as we go. But with a lot of our residents at Marama, what we try to do is push it a little more because we see pretty phenomenal outcomes. So what's going on? So physiologically, as we restrict oxygen, this is kind of like the dietary restrictions or hot and cold therapy. The idea, this is called hormesis, the hormetic effect or homeodynamics. What's happening is that when we stress the system, essentially what you get is a strengthening. So you get more resilience. And of course, if we restrict oxygen too long, we die, we suffocate, right? Like if you exercise too much, you're fully depleted. If you restrict calories too much, you starve. But what we want to do is restrict so much that our ability to respond to changes in the environment is strengthened. So that's what we're doing with the CO2. Well, you get CO2 when you go to negative oxygen, because CO2 starts to accumulate in the system. And CO2 is the very best, most potent vasodilator. So it means vasodilation, it's essentially a plumbing issue, right? If you have small blood vessels, they're restricted, you don't get as much blood through them. Vasodilation is when that dilates and the blood vessel gets bigger, which is signaled by CO2, carbon dioxide. And so that big blood vessel, now we deliver highly concentrated oxygen through the lungs. And now you have that big blood vessel delivering that highly perfused hemoglobin, their red blood cells. And so we get increased supply, not just of oxygen, but of nutrients, because you have these bigger blood vessels. This changes the pressure in the capillary beds, or that microvasculature, which causes more perfusion. So it causes more nutrient transfer across those capillary beds. Again, this is that hormetic effect. Over time, what we get is more resilience. We get changes in cell signaling. Because we're stressing the system a little bit, what we get is senescence. So that means that the cells that were kind of barely hanging on, the ones that were not really doing an optimal job, we say, bye-bye, let's recycle you. And then that signals the production, the formation, creation of new cells, new, stronger, better cells. So this is exactly what we want. And those signals don't get sent as much as we age. So we want that. We want to encourage that signaling of new, the production of new. So what we do when we create contrast and use the LiveO2 system at Marama is we do 1 to 2 weeks just getting comfortable. What we don't want is anybody to have a really bad experience and say they're never going to do it again. What we want is for them to feel really comfortable, really supported. So we just get them comfortable with the mask, comfortable on the bike. We use the Schwinn Airdyne. They don't pay me, neither does LiveO2. So we get them on there and get them super comfortable. And then after 2 to 4 weeks, we start introducing a little bit of negative O2. It really does make a huge difference when you can push yourself a little bit. The reason I found Live O2 was, oh gosh, it was probably around 2016, 2017. Independently, I had 2 patients and a colleague get the Live O2 system over the course of the holidays, like in December, January. And within, it was odd that like all 3 of them got this system at the same time, and they all were struggling with health issues. And sure enough, within a couple of months, they had made phenomenal improvements that they attributed to the Live O2. So we see detox, we see increased cardiovascular function, better brain clarity coming off the Live O2, lots of recovery from long-term chronic illnesses like EBV. So really, really helpful. And I've seen that more than once with patients, which is what inspired me to get it for Marama. Okay, so what I want you to do now is get out a pen and paper, and when you write down a goal, you're 10 times more likely to achieve it, right? So let's write these things down. Go get that pen and paper, pencil and paper, and tell me, what exercise will you commit to doing or helping your loved one do? What are you ready to do? What are you ready to sign up for? And write it down, write it in the chat. Let us know. You're also 10 times more likely, I'm making this up, I don't know, you're much more likely to achieve a goal if you have an accountability partner. And so that's part of naming it. That's part of putting it in the chat. Do it now, commit to it. Tell us, tell everyone. It makes it more likely that you're going to follow through. And if you have someone, and this might be someone you exercise with, it might be, your sister who's across the country, who you're going to tell, and then you're going to call and let us know who's going to hold you accountable. It might be a friend, it might be a spouse, it might be a sibling, could be a partner, could be an exercise partner, but it doesn't have to be. Who's going to help you do this? And tell me who that person is in the chat. Now I want you to add it to your calendar and tell everybody, tell us here, when is this going to start? Is it tomorrow? Are you traveling and you can't do it till next week? Put it in your calendar now. Take your calendar out or go on your phone, wherever it is, and schedule this. Scheduling it is sometimes, I know certainly in my life, scheduling it is the number one thing I have to do. If it's on my calendar, much more likely to do it. So put it in the chat and tell us when you're going to get started. And then when you're ready, tell us what's next. I would encourage you, even right now, you can do this right now. You can put it on social media. That can be your action item. You're going to tell everyone that you are committing to exercising 4 times a week. You're going to a new class. Maybe it's a yoga class, a Pilates class. Maybe you're going for a run. Maybe you're biking. Maybe your next action item is just to call the yoga studio or just to call the YMCA and figure out what classes they have or look online. It's okay if that's your action item, totally fine. But let us know, tell us in the chat, what is your next step? Identifying that next step doubles the likelihood that you're going to follow through on this. And then doing it increases that even more. So tell us what you're going to do. Just want to share what happened for one couple. They reached out to me in December of 2019, and they weren't going to be able to make it to Marama, like many of you. We have a waitlist at Marama. You're more than welcome to join it. We would love to hear from you because the waitlist shuffles a lot because some people aren't able to move in when their turn comes up. So if you have questions about that or want to join the waitlist, please do. Right now, we don't have space, unfortunately. So back then, these people were in your shoes. They couldn't move into Marama in December of 2019. We weren't even open yet. But she asked me, what can I do for my husband at home? And if you just had to pick one thing, what would you choose? And I said, exercise. So what happened, and I said two things actually, exercise and the ketogenic diet, but they did exercise. And then I heard from her a few months later during I think it was March or April of 2020, in the midst of this pandemic. We have some great news about my husband's condition. This was on CNS Vital Signs. His intelligence has improved from 75th to 84th percentile. Memory went from 78th to 85th percentile. People skills went from 86th to 94th percentile, and navigation went from 87th to 97th percentile. Wow. Now, this was life-changing for them because she was disabled. She had a arthritic autoimmune condition, and she was totally dependent on her husband for getting by. And he was losing his cognitive function. And of course, they were terrified that if they were both disabled, who was going to take care of them? And so they were highly, highly motivated to do everything that they could to reverse this awful disease. And sure enough, they were able to do it. And they didn't do absolutely everything. So again, that's part of what this Marama at Home course is, and the coaching especially, is to help you determine how to prioritize these things, make it a little simpler. So if you want to help others, I feel you're in the right place. Sharon is someone who reached out to us recently. She's a nurse and an educator. She nursed her mother through Alzheimer's dementia and until she passed away. And so for years, she was juggling her work and caring for her mom and flying around the country. She was jet lagged and exhausted and sleep deprived and suffering because, she lost that relationship with her mom. She wasn't the person she had been before. She didn't remember who Sharon was even when she would go to visit her. And so that was really demoralizing. Her mother had just become a shell of herself. And Sharon, of course, wants to prevent dementia for herself. And she wants to help her friends also learn more about this. And then because she's a nurse educator, she wants to make sure that her students know as much as possible and can pass as much of this information on to other people as well. So if that sounds like you, I'd love to support you more. If you want the freedom to travel again, Mary and her husband, Jim, patients of mine, Mary is a patient of mine, and they had plans to travel the world. They were waiting for Jim's retirement and they wanted to go to the Great Wall of China. They wanted to be able to go visit friends and family in Scotland and Ireland. And as they were planning all of this, as Jim was approaching retirement, Mary started losing her short-term memory. And she also became very overwhelmed by small tasks that would have been very easy for her previously. And they were terrified. They're scared. So she started thinking about these trips, and she was so overwhelmed. The thought of packing or getting on a plane was just too much for her. And they were both, of course, devastated. This had been their plan. They had been waiting for this moment in their lives. And so she's now learning this reverse Alzheimer's at home through this reverse Alzheimer's at home program. And, I'm so excited for them because I've seen this happen enough times that I think that these trips that they're going to go on are going to be so much more fun because I've just watched couples go through this, and especially when they do it together. And Jim is committed to doing this with Mary. So I think they're both going to have more vitality. They're going to be able to walk further on the Great Wall of China. They're going to be able to hike Machu Picchu. I mean, I think that they're going to feel so much better, that their trips that they would have had they not changed their lifestyle, I think will be that much better. So I can't wait to hear from them, and I can't wait to see them just go through this transformation. They're at the very beginning stages, but if you are someone who is like them and you want the freedom to travel again, I think, sign up for the course and let's spend more time together. Other people have shared with me, and this gets very real. Lisa is someone who reached out, and she's in a prevention stage. She's joining this course because her mom just went through it. So, and she watched her mom go through it with her dad supporting her, and she was supporting her mom. And then she also watched they also took care of a grandmother. So she has 2 daughters and 1 son. And this has affected so much of her adult life, caring for people with dementia and watching her parents care for people with dementia. And she does not want her kids to be in that position. She has grandchildren. She wants her kids to be able to focus on her grandchildren. She wants to be the one supporting her grandchildren One of my patients, Luigi, he's the best. He came in and his daughter was moving across the country to help him because he was starting to decline. And by the time we were done with Luigi, he's now taking care of his grandkids. So his daughter moved, which is amazing. I'm so grateful she moved anyways. I think she's grateful to be back in San Diego too, but it's just been so much fun. I ran into him in the community recently, and he was telling me all about his grandkids and how much time he spends with them. And he remembered me, recognized me, was asking me about my practice. And he was not headed in that direction a couple of years ago when we met. So really, really fun. So sorry, Lisa is joining us. And she was noticing that she is no longer as sharp as she once was. And she really like chalked this up to taking care of people with dementia. Being a caregiver puts you at risk. But even now that her mom has passed, she's not bouncing back. And she also is an ApoE3/4 carrier. So she has the genetic risk and she's ready to do everything that she can. Since her mom passed in February, it feels like she's kind of starting over. And she's like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in this next phase of life? She does not want to be someone with dementia, having her kids care for her, slowly declining and torturing everyone around her. So she knows that it's hard work and she's ready to get started. And so if you're ready to get started on this, then please sign up for the Marama at Home course. And I'm excited to tell you about the coaching that we're offering with it now. If you want to see someone graduate, Nora wrote to us recently, and she enrolled in the course because she wants to see her grandson Tyler graduate from college. Tyler had cancer when he was a child, and so she was sharing with us that she didn't know if he was going to make it. And at one point in her life, in his life, and now he's studying. He's a freshman in Oregon, and he's studying forestry and science, and he loves nature. He loves being outside. And he's just getting started, but in 4 years, she wants to be there to watch him walk across that stage. And for me, when I heard her telling me this, I was like, I want her to be there to meet her great grandkids, and not only to meet them, but I think even more is possible. Like, I don't think that Nora she's in her 70s. I don't think she just has 4 years of great cognitive capacity. I think she has even more than that. And I think she can not only meet, but get to know Tyler's children when he decides to have them, maybe when he's 30, maybe in 10 years, right? I just think that we've been told for so long that so little is possible. And we've allowed that to prevent us from getting the help we need and doing the work that it takes to get back and maintain cognitive capacity. So I'm so excited for everyone who's joining us. Another story I hear often and really relate to, this gets me every time. I was just at a conference this past weekend with my best friend, Nadia, and I imagine growing old with her. Whenever we celebrate a birthday, I think of us like these ladies, like sitting on a bench, reminiscing about things, that the shared experiences, the amazing, funny shared experiences we had, but also creating new memories at that age in our 80s and 90s and beyond. And if I hear these stories about people who are like, so Mariana is who reached out to us, and her friend's name is Anna, and both of Anna's parents had dementia, and Mariana is noticing that her friend, they grew up together in Mexico, and Mariana is noticing that her friend Anna is missing words. She's repeating stories, and she's terrified. She's not going to get the next 10 or 15 years with her friend, and I totally get it. That would terrify me too. And she doesn't want Anna's children to suffer either. She's watched Anna support her parents and her grandparent. I think it was her grandmother when they were younger. And nobody wants to go through this. And I have seen that the suffering is not necessary in so many circumstances. So I'm hopeful that, when I responded to Mariana and I said, well, I hope you're doing this with her, and Anna doesn't even know that Mariana signed up for this yet, right? Like, she's like, no, I'm going to learn everything from my friend, and then I'm going to go back to her and tell her what to do. And I was like, okay, well, you got to do it with her, because the side effects of this program are diabetes goes away, your hypertension gets better, you don't need as many blood pressure medications, your sleep gets better, your mood stabilizes. so many things get better. Your weight loss, if you're looking for that, we have to balance that if you're underweight. So work with a health coach. But it's so powerful what this whole lifestyle can do for everyone. So I think it's not just for Anna, right? I'm hoping that Mariana is doing this and they're going to do it together and both get the benefits of this protocol. So what we're offering is, of course, we have an 11 module caregiver training course, and we're going to give you a money back guarantee. So for 30 days, you have zero risk whatsoever. If you want to do the caregiver training course alone, it's just $497. I've been getting a lot of feedback and people asking for more support even than that. And so what I'm doing for just $19.97, and I'm doing this because of the engagement that we're getting and the questions that we're getting. They're so good. And I know I still have so much to learn. So I am going to do 12 weeks of live coaching. I probably am not going to do this for very long. And we're only opening it to 25 participants because we have a lot on our plate growing Marama. We have a lot going on, and I have to study going on, and we have funding for a second trial. So I don't have a ton of capacity, but like these stories make me cry. And how can I not be involved and support in as many ways as I can? And I get so much out of it. I love you guys. So we're doing 12 weeks of live coaching. This starts mid-August, and we're only doing it for 25 people. So if you want this, it's about $1,800, I think, to have a health coach, one-on-one health coach, and you're more than welcome to do that. But that is with our Julie Luby or Kaliko Mona, our wonderful, wonderful health coaches. They are phenomenal. You don't get the Marama at Home course with that. So if you want the Marama at Home course and live coaching with me, do it now. Sign up for this program right now. In the future, if I do it, I don't know if I'm going to. It'll start probably closer to $4,000 just because of how hard it is for me to set time aside. So if you want this, jump in. Right now is the time. And again, money back guarantee. You have 30 days, no risk. I want you to never sit in confusion again. I get so many people. Where do I start? What do I do? I'm going to be there to answer your questions for an hour a week, every single week, starting in mid-August. So all you have to do is jump in and lock this in today. And we're going to be sending you a link. We have you're attending tonight. You signed up for the webinar and you're here. And again, we only have 25 spots. And this week we had 55,000 people register for the summit. So we're going to open this up to everybody else later this week. So if you want to do this, make sure you click on the links and register. And we'll have more details for you soon. We just decided to do this last weekend because of all of the feedback and all the questions that we're getting about the course. And then there will also be a Facebook group. So you'll be able to get that. When you sign up for this, you'll get access to the Marama at Home course. This is the login page. So you'll just log in and there's support for you. Sheila and Whitney are here to support you if you have any trouble logging in or remembering passwords or anything like that. And then once you're logged in, you can start the course. So the way that we'll do it is that each week you'll, that's me. You'll ask questions in the Facebook group. Whitney and I will help you in the Facebook group, and then we'll get questions together. You'll do that module, and then we'll get together, answer all the questions, and do the exercises together. So if you need somebody to hold your feet to the fire to get this done, to make this happen so you can get the benefits of this program, then sign up for this course and I will hold your feet to the fire each week. We will hold you accountable. You're going to learn from me and you're going to get the specific steps about how to do this at home so that you can get the benefit. So you can be in that 84% of people that were in that Bredesen trial, so that you can be in the majority of people that get the benefit from this approach. So do the exercises in the module, show up for the webinar. I'll answer all of your questions and then you'll get the maximum benefit. All right. You guys are the inspiration. Your care, your dedication, you guys are the pioneers. You guys, caregivers and the people who are doing this at home, who are looking for better answers, your love, your attention, your perseverance, your hard work, you guys are the reason I get out of bed in the morning. I'm so grateful to you. I get to see these stories, be part of them, and I just couldn't be more delighted. Thank you. And I'm going to switch now to the Q&A. All right. So milligrams of EPA and DHA. The milligrams per day, usually 4 to 5 grams per day, lots and lots and lots. So surfing, I love it. From Diane, is surfing considered good exercise for brain? Is it similar for the brain like ballroom dancing? So great question, Diane, about surfing. I certainly think so because I surf. So it makes my brain work better. It's so calming. There's so many benefits. If you do surf, then it's probably not so much brain exercise. Don't hit your head. You're not allowed to hit your head or have a traumatic brain injury if you surf. That is not good for anyone who is suffering with traumatic brain injuries. That can actually be a risk for developing dementia. So really, really important to make sure that you don't hit your head. It's not too big. The waves aren't too big. And I think that you're doing it more for like the benefit of the stress management and the actual exercise and all of that. So the latest breakthroughs in hype and supplements touted as the next big thing can be overwhelming, like CBD, methylene blue, melatonin. What is your approach to natural supplementation at Marama, and what do you suggest for carers at home? So what I suggest for people at home, I have a short list. I really like Qualia Mind. Qualia Mind is something that we used in the study, and I'll show it to you. Again, they don't pay me, but I do know the guys who started this company, Neurohacker, and they're really phenomenal, and it's a very sophisticated product. So the latest breakthroughs, I go back to what I've seen work. Melatonin, okay, maybe if you need sleep, but a lot of this should be individualized. A nootropic formula, a good probiotic, a really good high quality fish oil is a great idea. I'm going to make sure that everyone has the right link here because I can see in the chat that there's some confusion. So give me 1 second. Sorry to confuse everyone. This is the one. All right. Okay, so if you want to sign up for coaching, it's maramathome.com/webinar. All right. If I have already had tests done, but my traditional doctor doesn't know how to interpret them or solve the underlying inflammation, can I come to you to put together a detox treatment plan? From Nina. Absolutely. Yes, you may absolutely come to Solcere. It's Solcere. I'm going to put that in the chat too, solcere.com. And you can talk to Whitney. Whitney is our, oh gosh, I'm doing this wrong. I need to send this to everyone. Whitney's our new patient coordinator, and she can help you get scheduled for that, Nina. It's super easy. Myself and Dr. Lender here, and we've both been trained by Dr. Bredesen, and we're happy to help you. So solcere.com, it's in the chat now, and you're welcome to click on that. You'll find our phone number, and then you can also schedule just to chat with Whitney, and she'll help you with all the new patient stuff. And we can, yes, detox and treatment plans, that's what we do all day long. We'll essentially take you through what we took our study participants through, which is what we see works. And we start with baseline, then we're looking every 12 weeks or so. At 12 weeks after you put the plan in place, we want to retest, make sure we're on the right track, make sure that we're going in the right direction and that you're getting the cognitive benefits as well as seeing those test results get better and better. I mentioned, so from Wendy, I had mentioned taking someone to the dentist. Which dentist was that? No one in Ventura County can help with severe gingivitis. Oh, so I recommend seeing a biological dentist. And there is an international group of biological dentists. If you Google that, you should be able to find someone near you. Biological dentists are so helpful. The other thing is that Dr. Bredesen trains dentists so that they understand kind of from a whole health perspective how the oral health can help or hurt cognitive health, excuse me. And so I highly recommend making an appointment with a biological dentist. If you're in Ventura County, maybe you could go to LA, maybe up to Santa Barbara. I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's some so much available in Southern California. So is Marama an actual skilled nursing facility? No, Marama is by definition a residential care facility for the elderly. So it's just residential, it's not skilled nursing. When people need when people need skilled nursing, when they need someone, monitoring vitals around the clock or something like that, they're healing maybe from a wound or a fall, that's a higher acuity situation. We do not do that at Marama. If we were doing that, we'd have our resources spread pretty thin. We want everybody there it's just a 12-bed facility, so it's pretty small. And what we want is everyone there supporting and getting in being on the program. So tonight's meeting was to discuss brain training. Yes, I'm not sure if you missed it but we discussed that for a while. So hopefully you got something out of that. If you have specific questions, please let me know. So we talked about meditations, we talked about games, we talked about creative activities, we talked about different exercise. So if you want more information, of course, there's a Marama at Home course. There's also lots of other people that have resources online, and you're welcome to reach out or give us some specific questions about that. And then from Janet, my hubby has been on the Bredesen protocol for 18 months. How do I treat mold toxicity in my husband, who's down to a 4 on his MOCA from a 15 where he started? What is the exact timing to give glutathione, charcoal, GI detox, and daily I don't even know what peccadillos are and daily supplements. So Janet, it's a really great question. I'm going to give you kind of an overall idea about how to time those, but I am not his doctor, I don't think. And so if I am, because you don't say his name, but if I am, then we need to chat. But charcoal and GI detox can be taken together. Glutathione you want to do on an empty stomach. Charcoal and GI detox need to be on a very empty stomach. You need an empty stomach about 2 hours, 45 minutes before or 2 hours after anything else. So you don't want to take that with other supplements. You don't want to take it with other medications. You don't want to take it with food. Charcoal and GI detox should be on their own. And then if he's declining that quickly and knows that there's mold toxicity, my question is he still being exposed? What is his real-time lab doing? Is that coming down? Do we know we're getting rid of it? What brand and kind of herbal tea before bedtime? Oh, we usually do the yogi teas, any sort of nice organic teas and calming teas, the stress relief. I like the stress relief one that has a little sage in it, but we'll do ginger, that kind of thing. Susan is asking, do Medicare and Medicaid pay for treatment? So good question. So Marama is not paid for by Medicare, but it is covered by long-term care insurance. We're licensed as a residential care facility for the elderly. So if you need residential care, then long-term care insurance will cover it. Not always all of it, depending on your insurance program. And then in the clinic, we get Medicare to pay for a lot of labs. Medicaid, we don't really do much with. But Medicare we do get lab coverage. Unfortunately, Medicare doesn't like how we practice. So they don't like naturopaths and they won't reimburse us. So it's really sad. It's not that we don't like them, it's that they don't like us. Where does Aqua fit in the exercise puzzle? My 80-year-old mom loves Aquafit. I love it. And when she hears the music, she starts dancing and is happy. Music, I didn't even talk about music. We get live music at Marama every other week. And the residents look forward to it. They love it. It's phenomenal. Rhythm is one of the last things to go for a lot of people who suffer with Alzheimer's. And so hearing music, especially music that they're familiar with, Elvis is a favorite, the Beach Boys is a favorite. So there's lots of fun whenever there's music involved. And Aquafit would be, if you're remembering, if there's somebody who is cueing you while you're in that program, then that could be one of those dual exercise things. And I would encourage it. Like, I just love that she's in the pool. Make sure rinsing after, don't, all the chlorine and stuff, make sure there's rinse, you don't want it to be toxic. In the program outlined in the schedule, are the meals ketogenic? Are light alcoholic beverages like wine allowed? So at Marama, no, we have no alcohol, and the meals are organic and ketogenic by default at Marama. Yeah, that everyone has on their treatment plan from their doctor. It's a prescribed medical diet and a ketogenic diet. And then of course at Marama, it's organic. Nancy, how do I motivate my husband to abide by the keto diet? It's a constant struggle for an 82-year-old sweet eater. Great program. Thank you. Any facilities of Marama on the East Coast? Oh, Nancy, thank you. We are trying to expand. We're trying to figure out how to get this to as many people as possible. It's part of why I don't think I'm going to be coaching forever, but we don't have any plans for Marama on the East Coast yet. I am hoping to start working with a group that can help us expand quicker. And so we will keep you posted. If you are on our email list, which you should be, if you were able to register for this, as long as the link didn't come through a friend, Nancy, if that came straight to your email, then you should be getting the emails, and you will be one of the first people to know as soon as we've expanded Marama to a second facility, or we have more beds somehow. And then motivating your husband to be on the ketogenic diet. The number one thing to do is to do it with him. And then whatever you put in front of him is keto, right? And there's not cookies and fruit and other things that are going to throw him out of ketosis hanging out on the counter, because he probably doesn't even remember that he's not supposed to eat the fabulous nectarine that's in season, right? So just making sure that's what's available is keto is the next best thing to do. And then if you're struggling, probably both of you should get on the ketogenic diet together. Usually that's how it's best, is when the partners do it with them. So I highly recommend that you do it together. And then I don't know if I'm even supposed to say this, but at Apollo, at Dr. Bredesen's company, I was chatting with that group recently, just yesterday, and they are just so close to having a keto meal delivery option. So we cannot wait for that to come out, because that is going to make it so much easier for everyone. What if you are sensitive to mold and still exposed, but have no options to get out? Trish, I am so sorry. That is such a struggle. Remediation, if that's possible, all I can say is that it's really hard to get well if you're still being exposed. And so I highly recommend that you lean on whatever allies you have to get out of that moldy environment. Oh, it is so challenging. I have Marama at home already. Will I have any discount if I sign up? Yes. Can I be in touch through the education at Marama experience email? What am I trying to say? Education at Marama experience, let them know, and then we'll convert you into the coaching program. No problem at all. And then how much O2 do you start with at the beginning? Oh, great question, Cynthia. So this is like, I'm wondering if you are talking about at the very beginning, when you're just doing EWAT, you're on 80% oxygen and you're just doing EWAT, you're just adding oxygen and you do it the whole time. So you have the mask on, you're getting the 80% oxygen while you exercise. When you start going back and forth, what we do is we have people warm up. And so you make sure your pulse ox is at 99% or 100%. I think usually the top is 99. There's not 3 digits on there. And then you get your heart rate up into that 75 to 85% of your target, or of your max heart rate. So that's in your target heart rate. And again, that calculation I'm going to put in the chat here. It's 200 minus your age, and that equals your max heart rate. And then you multiply your max heart rate by 75%, and that's the minimum you want. And then you multiply the max heart rate times 85%, and that equals the range of your target heart rate. When you're there, you want to get there basically on the O2, and then you switch it to negative and you sprint, and then you sprint for as long as you can on negative, and then you switch back to positive oxygen until you recover, and then you switch back and forth. And then what if I'm not on Facebook? Great question. So Christy, you don't need to be on Facebook to be involved in the coaching. The coaching is going to be done. The live coaching is going to be done just like this, except instead of a webinar, it'll be in a Zoom call. So it's going to be an intimate group, no more than 25 of us. And what we'll do is we'll all connect on a call like this. So you can totally do this. And then in Facebook, you'll just be connecting with Whitney and I, but there will be, you can use the Marama, the education at Marama experience email as well, if you want to connect that way. So totally fine. And then frontotemporal dementia. So this is a really great question. There's 2 questions from Rita and Carrie about frontotemporal dementia. So I'm going to kind of lump this in with Lewy body, with other forms of dementia and neurodegenerative disease. There are kind of different types, but this is mostly for the purpose of marketing, is what I would say. It's like, it doesn't really matter if somebody's having neurodegenerative decline, even like Parkinson's or ALS. And of course, there are differences in our, how confident we are, but these are all kind of on the same continuum. It's a neurodegenerative disease. And so essentially there's not enough energy getting to the cells in the brain. And if that's because, right, again, this is, Dr. Bredesen has his 6 types of Alzheimer's, or these 36 holes in the roof. And so how it manifests and what the diagnosis is, what we call it, the Latin term or the ICD-10 code or whatever we do to name it, is less important to me than the why. How did this person get there? What happened to them so that their brain is essentially trying to protect itself? So Lewy bodies, the beta amyloid plaques, like these physiological changes, this histological changes that you see under a microscope, and the cell changes are really in an effort for the brain to defend itself, to protect itself, so that things don't get worse. And like amyloid plaques are antimicrobial, so they get triggered. Their production is triggered when you have oral infections. This is why the dentist is so important. When you get COVID, for some people, not everybody, herpes triggers that as well. And so can Lyme disease, Lyme spirochetes. So when you have the other infections can as well, and inflammation can, of course, and toxicity can, but these manifest slightly differently for different people. But Dr. Bredesen's approach really is the best that we have to address any of these. And although we know the most about Alzheimer's is kind of silly because basically most dementias are called Alzheimer's, but it's kind of silly why. It was more of a marketing ploy by the original, the author. Well, so Alzheimer's, his mentor was this guy. This is all described in this book that is right here, How Not to Study a Disease. The story of Alzheimer's. It's essentially been one marketing ploy after the next to get people to go down, the researchers and so the institutes of aging and like government association or government institutions have chased this beta amyloid plaque hypothesis for so long. I'm going on a tangent. I'm going to get off of my rant. Basically, we went down the wrong path. The research, it's wasted a lot of time and money. And the solution, the best solution we have right now is Dr. Bredesen's. From what I found, it works. You just have to do it. And I believe that it works with frontotemporal dementia, although I have less evidence that that's so. It's just because all of the research dollars were going into Alzheimer's. And so it's really frustrating. It gets me very upset. Okay, is our information shared with Alzheimer's Association? Yeah, they don't like us. They are supported financially by things like Biogen and the pharmaceutical industry. So I don't know. Dr. Bredesen's in touch with them. Thank God I don't get too into those conversations. I get to have conversations with people like you. It's way more fun. And then repeat so it's DHA and EPA. DHA and EPA are the types of omegas that you want for cognitive function. And then from Julie, qualia mind, caffeine-free or with caffeine. The caffeine is a nootropic, so it's a little bit stimulating, but what's nice about the qualia mind is that it is balanced with things like theanine, similar to green tea, has that balance. Like coffee on its own, it just has caffeine, it doesn't have theanine, whereas tea has that theanine and caffeine so that you get the cognitive benefits, but without getting too much jitters. What testing or blood work is recommended from Marama at home participants, and should they get this through primary care? So Christina, that's a great question. That's probably more what you want to get through Dr. Bredesen. So he has testing Apollo Health Co. and the Recode program. That is where like the testing, it's more individualized, it's more precision medicine based. And if you come to Solcere, we can totally do that too. And so what you want to get is that testing. If you want to do the lifestyle stuff, if you're struggling with lifestyle, this is like the 75-80% is lifestyle. I've had people come with Dr. Bredesen's book and be like, I got so much better, I'm ready to take it to the next level, do all the testing. But what I'm supporting you with is how to do it at home. It doesn't matter what your testing says. If you want to take that next level and do all the blood work, you can do that through Recode. You can do that through Solcere. It gets confusing. There's a lot of layers to this, and different people kind of have different bandwidth for doing it all. So you are more than welcome to do that with us. But Marama at Home does not offer testing. That's a little bit different. Okay. So the webinar, weird. It's connecting for me. MaramaAtHomeWebinar.com. I just clicked on it and it worked. Is anybody else having trouble? How much time per day would be needed for the caregiver course? So Maria, you can really go as fast as you want. So the caregiver course is designed so that you can spend a couple of hours a week. So you would spend an hour with me and an hour or so doing all of the coursework and the exercises, and then another hour with me getting your questions answered, and then it's implementation. And that's part of what we talk through in the course is how do we implement? How do we prioritize? How do we schedule for all this? How do we make sure we have the support we need? And that's a big part of what the course is about, is how to kind of reprioritize and allocate the time that's necessary to make sure that you are getting everything you need to implement this and get the support and the benefits. From John, I've been on the Keto Flex 12-3 diet for 8 weeks. I'm 6'1" and weigh 172 pounds. After 8 weeks, I'm at 152 pounds, which is close to my weight when I graduated from college, and I'm 72 now. How do I know if I'm losing too much weight? John, that's a really, really great question. So Dr. Gundry, I asked him this question. I shared with him how worried I was about my elderly patients who I thought were losing too much weight. And he said, no, in fact, most people, you want them to be a little underweight, they do better. So, I've heard that. It still makes me nervous. But if you're doing the entire Bredesen protocol, usually what we're also doing is supporting with good trophic support. So your testosterone, you're eating plenty of calories. You're not calorie restricting. You're eating. I do recommend, even though dairy and animal proteins are sometimes inflammatory, sometimes people consider them inflammatory. When you're in ketosis, I don't want you in ketosis forever, you've been in it for 8 weeks. So 12, maybe you do 12 weeks, but you do not restrict calories. I want abundant calories, shorter feeding window. Yes, you're not eating 24 hours a day. You're not eating 18 hours a day or even 16. You're eating maybe 12 hours a day and not 3 hours before bed, lots of calories, and then get on that trophic support so that you're building muscle. So you might be leaner, not have as much fat. You've changed body composition, but you shouldn't be wasting away. And most people that works because the ketogenic diet, you're still getting calories in, right? You're still getting things. You're still getting plenty of nutrients. You just want to switch how you're metabolizing, and that will lead to changes in body composition and less fat. So hopefully that's reassuring. I know that I gave a talk at a conference to a bunch of my colleagues, naturopaths, this last week, and this is a big question of like, how do we make sure people don't lose too much weight? And I think that I think Gundry's right to some degree that we worry about it a little bit too much. But and you shouldn't keep losing weight, you should stabilize, right? You don't want to be underweight, but you shouldn't get cachexic. You should feel strong. You should feel better. And if that's the case, then you're probably in a good spot. I wouldn't worry. If you're feeling really exhausted and lethargic and like you don't have energy and you're not as strong, that's a problem. Okay, from Patricia, when doing detox like IV chelation, if mercury and tungsten is found in the blood and urine, is it possible for symptoms of Alzheimer's to get worse before it gets better? My opinion, Patricia, is that you not do chelation, IV chelation. I try not to, or if you do it slowly. If you have things getting worse, you might be going too quickly. I like the product IMD powder from Quicksilver Scientific, and that works as well as IV chelation, and it's oral, and you do not have the risk of mineral imbalances and other things that come up, particularly postmenopausal women with the risk of bone disease, of osteoporosis. I really try to stay away from that if I can. Not for everyone. With lead, it's really hard to stay away, but with mercury, you certainly can get really great results just by taking that IMD powder. Usually you take it with glutathione, B12, and vitamin C. EWAT, I have the oxygen concentrator. What is the website to contact? So liveO2, LIVEO2.com. How long do residents stay at Marama? So we have residents who've been there for over 2 years now, which is really exciting. They keep getting better and better. So they stay as long as they want to. If they're lots of fun, we want them to stay longer. If they're not, we don't. No, I'm just totally teasing. We have some wonderful residents that have stayed for as long as we've been open, essentially, and they continue to get better. We've had other residents come for 6 months and decide it wasn't for them. There are other people, you know, there's kind of a mixed bag, but it's not a retreat center. This isn't like I'm going for a month or I'm going for 3 months. You move in, and it's a lifestyle. Now, what we hope is that people come early enough that they get full recovery and they're able to live independently. We need to move in early for that to happen. It needs to be early on in the disease process. And we have people moving in these days who are earlier on in the disease process. And so I'm very excited to see what happens next. I think that that's going to be possible for some of our current residents. So we'll keep you posted. Is there an alternative to choline? I can't take one of the ingredients. Yes, NeuroQ. NeuroQ is phenomenal, and you should probably be getting emails from them. If you were signed up for the summit, they were a partner with us on the summit, and they do a great job. And then, how do you count carbs on the ketogenic diet? Total carbs or net carbs? This is a great question. I think that you asked this question last week and I didn't answer because I don't know. I look at, so I have a kombucha right here and I see total sugars added. I look at total carbohydrates, and that is what I use. And I don't know the difference between net carbs and total carbs. I only see on the nutrition labels the total carbs there. What is the monthly cost for the residential program? So it starts at $15,000 a month. And you are welcome to join the waitlist for the residential program. Carrie is who you'll talk to over there. And there is at maramaexperience.com, there's an apply now page. And I'll put that in the chat. So just go to maramaexperience.com, go to the apply now page, and that'll get Carrie all your information, and then she'll follow up with you and you can talk through that. Catering to strict vegans is not actually something I recommend for people who are looking to reverse dementia, because it's your diet gets very, very limited. And so I don't think that that's best for most people's health. But we can talk through if it's more vegetarian or pescatarian, that could probably work. But that is something to consider. Yeah, Kate Kunkel, she wrote a book on vegan diets for dementia, or vegetarian diets for dementia, and she has some really great information. Any research facilities that accept and benefit from body donation towards research, science, education to help and understand dementia? Diana, that is a fantastic question that I do not know the answer to. I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then I'm going to look forward to seeing you all next week for the fourth of the Marama at Home pillars of Marama. Thank you all for joining us. Cognitive dysfunction due to long haul COVID. So Joan, what I have seen is that the people who have long haul COVID, there's high mercury for one of them, or there's high mold for another, or there's inflammation from another infection that's underlying it. There's very high stress or sleep deprivation. It's kind of the same approach that we take to treating dementia. We want to understand what was the milieu of stuff going on in the body that made you susceptible to this, right? COVID is this phenomenal illustration of how it's really about the host, not so much the pathogen. You have the same pathogen and some people don't get it. Some people are asymptomatic, and then other people succumb, they die, or they have long haul COVID. So what set that up? That's always my question with long haul COVID. There are things that we can do for cytokines like quercetin and some of the mast cell stabilizers, plasmapheresis. There are things that are working really well for long haul COVID for some people, kind of depending on what's going on. Very much like dementia, you have a bunch of people with long haul COVID, but they didn't all arrive there in the same way. Even though COVID was the catalyst, it was that straw that broke the camel's back, that now they have debilitating fatigue or whatever their symptoms are manifesting as. But there's some other underlying stuff going on that put them at risk for that. Is mate a good tea? From Wendy? It claims to be way better than coffee and is an antioxidant. So typically teas have this balance. They have some antioxidant properties. They have some theanine in them. Matcha is what I drink. It's what I recommend. Good organic matcha. Every time I read anything scientific about it, there's something else that it does to protect you, your brain, your bones, your immune system, whatever it is, your genetics. Matcha is phenomenal. I love it. It's great taste too. And you can add some keto creamer to it. And mate is also phenomenal. So highly recommend it. But and is it way better than coffee? I don't know. I don't drink coffee. I never have been a coffee drinker. So I'm not attached to coffee, but I don't think it's good or bad. If you like your coffee, enjoy. I love a morning ritual. All right. So nice to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, you guys are the inspiration, and the reason I show up is because I get to work with people like you. So thank you so, so much for being the pioneers in this space, really looking to find solutions for this absolutely torturous, awful disease. Thank you so much. I will see you all next week.